UConn deserves to be the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your team every day. My name is Kalia Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky. And thanks for being an everydayer and making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. As always, I am joined with radio analyst Sophia Jones, but this is a very, very special day because today is Sophia's birthday. So I want everybody to give Sophia a quick round of applause for her birthday. Sophia, with that being said, what should we be on the lookout for today?
You know, the CBA deadline is today for the WNBA. I would love to see some positive news in relation to that on my birthday.
We're all looking for some good news, but it is very important on Sophia's birthday, obviously the most. So hopefully that's what we can get. That's something we're going to talk about today's CBA. We're also going to get into the finalist list for the Wooden Award, the top 15 players that have been added to the list. But first, we are going to go into UConn, who we believe should be the number one seed heading into the NCAA tournament. Now, they just won the Big East tournament yesterday. This was their 50th consecutive win for defending the national championships, or the defending national champion Huskies. They're 34-0. They enter the women's basketball undefeated for the 11th time in their storied history. A couple of episodes ago, we had talked about some of these undefeated regular season teams that just went on to also win the national championship. This is looking like a team that could also do so. But the only other team that is potentially giving UConn a run for their money within the AP polls starting this week is UCLA. Now, we talked about UCLA yesterday having more quad one victories than UConn this season, but UConn is the only undefeated team in all of NCAA right now. What is your argument for UConn staying at that number one seed over UCLA?
I would have to go to the eye test where you look at the top end talent that UConn has between Sarah Strong and Azzi Fudd. Azzi Fudd is already predicted to go higher in this year's WNBA draft than Lauren Betts, who is the best player on UCLA. And then you add Sarah Strong, who is the favorite to win the Player of the Year award that we'll get into a little bit in the next segment. But that duo is so incredibly strong. Looking at how UConn demolished Villanova in their title game 90-51. They're just on a different type of run. Yes, they do play in the Big East, so they're not seeing as much competition as the Big Ten. However, their non-conference schedule was strong, and they even had two matchups during their league play that were non-conference opponents to still test themselves. And these were a lot of ranked opponents that they had the same continued dominance against.
I agree, where they had their redemption tour this season. I think that's an added storyline to it too, of the teams that they lost to throughout the regular season when they would play those out of conference games last season are the exact teams that they also beat this year, with a Tennessee, a Notre Dame. We've seen UConn compete in the Big East, and as you mentioned, maybe not have as high of a competition level as UCLA has had in the Big Ten, but we see UConn come out and comfortably beat a lot of these top-ranked teams, because those teams at the time that they played this season without a Notre Dame, they were all still ranked within the top 25 within the AP polls. They're winning comfortably. They're going back to the Big East. They're still winning comfortably. And I agree with you. When you have that top end talent with an Azzi Fudd and a Sarah Strong, it's really hard to compare. But you look at, obviously, a Lauren Betts and just honestly a good portion of the UCLA roster. But when you're kind of talking about those home names that are thrown around a lot, Azzi Fudd is always going to be a number one. I think Sarah Strong is becoming more of a household name, even when we're getting into our next segment for the Wooden Award. Both of those players are on the list. And then you have a Lauren Betts on there as well. But UConn is a face. UConn is an image that has been long lasting for years. UCLA is kind of coming more to the forefront. And I think their head coach, Corey Close, is doing a really good job at wanting to make sure that they're getting that visibility and the recognition that they deserve. But it's just really hard to go up against a UConn that has just had such a storied history for over the past decade.
Exactly. It's extremely difficult. And UCLA, if they had beat Texas, their lone loss of the season, if they beat Texas in that non-conference game back in November, I think you do have to put them number one because of that resume. They have 18 quad one wins, the top wins over double number, and the best strength of schedule. Those are analytics that at that point you can't argue with going up against another undefeated team. But because there's just that one blemish on their resume, I see the understanding for UConn. And again, the eye test where UConn, the way that they're winning is just so incredibly powerful that you can't help but put them in that number one spot. But like what you said, UCLA, they definitely deserve all the respect that they've been getting. UConn was an unanimous number one in the AP poll for the last 8 weeks. But this last week, UCLA got 3 votes. So they stole a little bit, and I can understand the rationale behind that. I think it's not as clear cut that UConn is miles ahead of the rest of the women's college basketball as maybe they were in these last 8 weeks.
Yeah, and I think even to your argument about if UCLA didn't have that one loss to Texas, I think you can still argue. And I still believe that UConn should be the number one over pick, but I can see some of those votes in the AP poll as well, obviously because of strength of schedule. But it does look a bit better now that Texas won the SEC tournament as well and beating a South Carolina team. And now they beat South Carolina twice this season, obviously one non-conference, one for the conference. And that might look a little bit better and appealing to AP voters of like, okay, I could see them being a number one overall because Texas has had the sort of season that they have had. And then obviously just comparisons between the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 of the top conferences within college basketball. But obviously you're going to look at the SEC for a good portion of that. And then obviously UConn is just in a whole different realm of their own. But I think what's really interesting was head coach Gino Auriemma's kind of conversations afterwards when we're talking about just how comfortable he has looked all season long. He has remained that. But you know, you go to the Big East tournament, you have a comfortable 90-51 victory over Villanova for the Big East title. And he said, there's still pressure everywhere you turn. And I think what's so interesting is it's that internalized pressure for UConn. We see what their practices look like. We see former players talking about the type of workouts Coach Auriemma used to put them through. It's pressure of outperforming themselves every single season, yet they still rise to that occasion.
Definitely. I remember learning back in my AP psychology class in high school, they say that internal motivation is always better than external motivation. And when you look at UConn and what's festering in stores and each of the individual players, they're all combining to produce the best unit possible. And when you can internally look at yourselves and have that be your only fuel, not caring who's in front of you, not caring about the noise, what the media is saying, just taking every game at a time. Those are the most dangerous teams and why UConn has been so successful this season.
Another interesting point he brought up is the fact that they are able to play at this high of a level without Paige on the team. Coach Auriemma also said, I don't know how you take one of the top players in the WNBA off your team and say you're better, because there are a lot of times when I watch us play and I say, what would have happened if we had Paige. So the fact that you're removing Paige Beckers, you're still having an undefeated season, and we know how much Gino loves Paige and how much he still wishes that she could low-key be on this UConn team for the rest of his career. But even that element of being able to take off the number 1 overall pick in the draft, the rookie of the year in the WNBA, you take that off your roster and you still have an undefeated season. No wonder he's just like, we always have pressure on us, but we always can figure it out. And they continue to do so and have a very good chance at winning the national title once again.
That has to be a reflection of the player development that UConn has as well, because a lot of these players were still on the roster. When you specifically look at Azzi and Sarah and the improvements that they've made, that's why they're at the stage that they are now, despite not having Paige, because they're actually still growing and not remaining stagnant.
Exactly. We'll see if they can have back-to-back victories, but stay with us because a lot of the players on the UConn roster that we just mentioned are on the Wooden Award watch list for the final 15 finalists. So stay with us as we review. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why GameTime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I wanted to go to a Bulls game the other night, so I pulled up the GameTime app, picked an upcoming game for the Bulls and who they were playing and who I wanted to see their opponent be, and had tickets locked in within minutes. It was so fast, so simple, and I was able to just pull up to the game, have a good time, and go home. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. It's 2026, and if you're still paying rent without Bilt, it's time for a change. Bilt is the loyalty program for renters that rewards you for your biggest monthly expense, rent. With Bilt, every rent payment earns you points that could be used towards flights, hotels, Lyft rides, Amazon.com purchases, and just so much more. And starting last month, Bilt members actually started earning points on mortgage payments for the first time. So soon you'll be able to get rewarded wherever you live and unlock exclusive benefits with more than 45,000 restaurants, fitness studios, pharmacies, and other neighborhood partners. Personally, I would like to redeem my points we're going to switch it up and go with my student loan balances because I'm finally starting to get some of those payments in my inbox. I went to grad school. Everybody just knows how that goes. So I would like to start getting rewarded for at least getting another layer of education. So join the program for renters at joinbilt.com/lockedonwomen. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonwomen. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. The John R. Wooden Award announced its 2026 women's national ballot, listing 15 college basketball players who are the finalists for the award. So this is honoring the most outstanding women's college basketball player in the U.S. The selected ballot by the National Advisory Board represents players from 13 different universities, with 2 players each from UConn and as well as Texas. So some of the top teams within the NCAA. Looking ahead at our list, we'll start with some of the UConn players since that is what we were just coming off of. Azzi Fudd has made that list. We'll look at some of her averages from this season. 17 points per game, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. She had a 49, 45, 95 shooting split. I'll let you guys just sit with that for a little bit because these are really unheard of numbers. And I think some people saw earlier this season, or maybe a couple of games ago now, her mom was also honored as basically being a legend within the Big East. Her mom had played at Georgetown. And when we say that they created a sharpshooter, this family knew exactly what they were doing. I believe her dad played at American University, whereas where I went for one semester before I transferred. But anyway, besides the point, we also have Sarah Strong on this list, who's averaging 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. She's shooting 59% from the field. And for a large portion of the season, and still could possibly reign true, she was leading this team in assists, points, rebounds. Sarah Strong is a very high contender for being the best player on the best team and being able to walk away with a Wooden Award.
I 100% agree. And you talk about those offensive numbers. Well, defensively, she's averaging 3.2 steals per game and 1.8 blocks per game. Within the Big East, she was the player of the year and the defensive player of the year. So she's really just that epitome of a two-way forward. And you love to see it. And like you said, best player on the best team. UConn not in the position that they are without Sarah Strong. They'll still be a good team, very good team even, but Sarah Strong just elevates them to that extra stage with the way that she not only operates and orchestrates offensively, but how much she can affect the game with her size and activity defensively.
Since we're doing a little bit of a comparison game today, especially with UConn and UCLA, really strictly just based off them receiving some AP votes this week compared to UConn. But Lauren Betts has also made this list. She's averaging 16 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 3 assists, shooting 56% from the field. And you just spoke about Sarah Strong. Lauren Betts also earned the Big Ten Player of the Year while also earning her second straight Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, she has made this national ballot, but it's so interesting because these are very two different players, though, when you're looking at Sarah Strong and Lauren Betts. But when you're talking about utilizing that size to their advantage, having interior presence, and I think Lauren Betts has kind of opened up her game at having to facilitate a little bit more this season. I think UCLA has taken a lot of strides of still playing a lot through Lauren, but not relying solely on having to utilize her to get their offense going. I think that's where her assist average has come up a little bit this season. When you have those threats on the perimeter like you have with the guards that they have, she has been able to open up her game. And you think of her as well. UCLA could be a very good team without her on the team, but she has that added layer of impact.
The majority of the Bruins offense revolves around Lauren. She is inside posting up when she gets the ball. If it's single coverage, it's a layup. If it's not, and people double, triple, she's gotten better at making those decisions within the 0.5 to kick out. And that's where you mentioned the assist numbers have gone up this year. But defensively, she's just waiting for anyone to come around the rim and test that shot blocking ability. You talk about having a rim protector and really owning the paint. Lauren Betts does that on both ends of the floor, and it's a huge reason why UCLA has been so successful this season.
I'm really still just waiting for her to pin somebody's shot on the backboard. I mean, she's 6'7", she's got the length. She has pretty solid hops. I'm waiting for her to just get up there and pin somebody's basket from the back, but we'll get there. We'll see if she can do it in the tournament. Other notable players coming from Texas, Madison Booker, who's having a really stellar season. Again, Texas just winning the SEC championship over South Carolina. And this is just their second season being in the SEC after moving over from the Big 12. She's averaging 18 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, shooting 51% from the team. You also have from the field. You also have Rory Harmon, who's averaging 8 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. Her numbers maybe don't stand out as much. I think Rory Harmon is just really one of those impact players who has broken the steals record for Texas. She's broken the assist record for Texas. She has a different level of kind of a calmness to the storm with her maturity.
Yeah, on Texas's roster, Madison Booker is the player that you look towards to provide that offensive generation, be that primary scorer. But Rory Harmon sets the tone for the whole group. Offensively, she's the ball handler, facilitator. You look at that assist number, she does a great job orchestrating the Longhorns offense, which thrives and relies so much on their half-court game that you need a solid point guard to help facilitate everything. And defensively, she's there picking you up full court every single time, putting so much pressure on the opposing team's ball handler and trying to blow up the defense. So she's the front line in both offense and defense. And like I said, she establishes the way that Texas wants to play.
Some other notable players on this list: Hannah Hidalgo from Notre Dame, Jeloni Cambridge, Ohio State, Reagan Beers, Oklahoma, Michaela Blakes, Vanderbilt, Audie Crooks, Iowa State, and Joyce Edwards, South Carolina. The voting will run from March 16th through the 28th, and voters will consider the full season plus what the NCAA tournament looks like, and the top 5 finalists will be revealed April 4th during the Final Four broadcast, and the winner will be announced on April 10th. And that's going to be on that kind of final stage there of who wins the Wooden Award. But stick with us because the CBA deadline has come and passed once again, and we're not sure if it's looking great or not.
It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now, FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. There's so much basketball going on during March. The tournament is happening. All action that everyone should want to get in on. Looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook at some of the odds for who's going to win the national championship in women's, they have UConn as a minus 270 favorite and UCLA now in the second favorite spot at plus 550. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
So we all want the WNBA to happen, obviously, but the new deadline was set for March 10th, which is today. And so that expiration date has kind of come and passed without any added knowledge of if an agreement has really come to terms just yet. There hasn't been anything put out there about it in regards to them having a finalized deal just yet, which would still need to be signed off, all that good fun stuff, which wouldn't happen until the end of the month. But most recently, the WNBA had sent a collective bargaining agreement proposal to the union a day after the league received one from the players. The WNBA's response to a union proposal from Friday was just after, obviously, this Tuesday deadline being set, which said it would need at least a handshake agreement with the players to start the season on time. That aspect of things looks like either way, the season, things would either have to happen very quickly or there could be a slight delay to the season by the time, if, say, there is an agreement reached within the next couple of days, if they have a handshake agreement, everything being finalized, signed off on, and proceeding to move forward would still take an extra couple weeks or so.
Yes, because there needs to be a germination period after they agree on a CBA for it actually to be signed, ratified, and put into action. It's only after it's put into action that things like the expansion draft, the rookie draft, and free agency can all occur, which again, all very big tasks to do. For the expansion draft, you have the Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire this year. The rookie draft, that's always around this time anyway, but you still want to make sure you have your roster constructed so you know who you want at least. And for free agency, where the majority of the league and all but 2 veterans will be free agents, and they all need to have landing spots. So there's still a lot to be accomplished, but that is why the league put this deadline in the first place, because they didn't want there to be any more, or they didn't want there to be delays with these things that need to happen. But right now, the ball is essentially in the players' court because the last proposal to be sent out was from the league. They could have a handshake agreement and the ball could get rolling, or it could keep going back and forth like what we've been seeing. But right now, after hearing a lot and reading a lot of what is going on with the players' mindsets, they are really starting to lean towards the side of having a season. However, you definitely want to project the fact that you are willing to strike, because that's their leverage, and that's how the league is going to compromise more, because there's no league without the players. So that's just the mindset. However, in hearing about what different players are saying, they really do want to have the season. The league understands that a season needs to happen. It's just at an impasse right now.
Yeah, Brianna Stewart said it herself. We want the deal to be done. We want to have a season. We just need to find the right numbers that reflect it. Taking a look at the most recent proposals so far, the union's previous proposal from a week ago asked for an average of 26% of the gross revenue. So revenue before expenses over the course of the CBA, that would include 25% in the first year of the new deal. Then that would grow as the league continues to grow. But the league said that that number was unrealistic. The WNBA's past few proposals have offered that 70% of net revenue, with that number going up as the league continues. So the argument still just there in terms of gross versus net, and what that reflection of the percentage is going to look like for the players. I do feel like the players have leaned into trying to work with the league a little bit more on that number over the past few proposals, but exactly not sure what that most recent number looks like in some of their more recent talkings this week.
The union started out asking for above 30% of gross revenue. So they've brought that number all the way down to 25%. However, the league has pretty much stayed at that 70% of net revenue. And again, it's a difference between salary structures, where the union wants gross revenue, which is before expenses, whereas the league wants net revenue, which is after expenses. That, in addition with housing, where the league is trying to phase that out, are really the main separators and issues during these negotiations.
We will see if we can still have that season start on May 8th. But thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Women's Basketball today. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Women's Basketball so you get all the latest episodes. And if you ever miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Just go to lockedonwomensbasketball.supercast for ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Stay with us. We'll see you again tomorrow.